Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another fantastic program. We think is fantastic because we're trying to empower our community. And the title of our session tonight is Credit is a Blessing, Curse, or How It Really Works. And we're really want to share some ideas with you tonight that you can take and put into action today. Among our goals is to share with you what you can do with your credit and to help you to move toward a new level. This evening, we'll share credit tips and advice, the original intent of credit, and how each of us, can improve our individual standings. And also today, we hope to show you the power that you have when you complete a credit application and how to use it to your advantage. This event is hosted by the Association of Black Economic Power with its executive director, Deborah Hurston, whose goal is to eliminate the pernicious effect of persistent low economic status among African Americans by promoting the creation of prevention intervention mechanisms to address systemic wealth extraction and economic disparities. We want to remove social stigmas, I should say, and provide a solid financial foundation for people to move forward and keep them from exiting the world of finance. We have an esteemed group of people here today to help us to navigate this idea of credit and how it really works. First, in no particular order, is Trent Bowman, who is a VP of Community Impact for Bremer Bank. Also, Karen Washington, who is a realtor and a financial coach. We all need coaches in our lives. And Jeffrey Robinson, who is a senior program manager of Build Wealth Minnesota INC. Glad to have you all with us. And let's get right into it. We only have 58 minutes left, and I want to be a good steward of the time we have this evening together. So at the start, at the beginning of what we know today about credit worthiness, there was a system rooted in racism ideology. How do you feel Americans have been able to navigate through the minefields left for us? And I'll start with Trent Bowman.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. I think Black Americans have been able to navigate through the mines of credit through education. I think education is a key component in us understanding credit, the utilization of credit, how credit works, understanding the true measurement of a credit score. The credit score, in my opinion, is the heartbeat of everything that we do, because it gives so much leverage on what we can accomplish, i.e. getting a job, interest rates, the type of loan or loan products that we can qualify for. But it wasn't always easy. And then just through hard knocks, to be honest with you, through experience, I can only speak for myself. I didn't understand credit when I was a young man. So I, had multiple credit cards, et cetera, and abused credit. So I didn't really understand, the benefits of credit. So as I got older and as I started to learn the power of credit, and getting educated in the process, it allowed me to understand credit in a more positive perspective. So I think, we navigate through it through experience, but also through education as well.
Education is certainly key. And Karen, you deal with credit on a lot of different levels. How would you answer that same question? How do you think we as Black Americans have been able to navigate through what we were calling minefields that have been left for us?
Well, the unfortunate piece is I think we have a long way to go before we're able to say that we have mastered this art of credit. Understanding what it was built to do, knowing your history about it. Credit was meant to do two things. It was to separate the gap between the wealthy and the unwealthy, and to keep people in a certain pigeonhole, if you will. And so understanding what that really means, I think once you understand the validity behind it, it helps you to understand how to navigate through that. So yeah, there are definitely some pitfalls. We know that, you go into a bank, you apply for a loan, depending on what you look like, or depending on what your name might look like, you might feel a little different. Knowing that about you, but also understanding that you can change that by just doing simple things, knowing what your credit is, knowing that you have leverage to use it and how to utilize it is super important. Knowing those bumps and bruises can be taken care of. So that you don't fall into that gap to where you feel like, oh, they're denying me all the time. Well, they're denying you because you have an opportunity to maybe change some things so that you can get approved. So yeah, we have a long way to go, but it's definitely it's going to be a challenge, but we can do it.
Karen says it's a challenge for us, and there are minefields out there. Jeffrey, how do you think that we've been able as Black Americans to navigate through this maze called credit?
You know, one thing I've learned in life, Freddie, is that it is the biggest teacher. And
How
so,
so?
so what's been happening is that credit has moved from the department stores to the banks, to other financial institutions, to the insurance companies, to landlords, to wherever you can imagine. Credit has creeped into our lives in some kind of way. And as a result, though, because it's so prevalent and it's being used in all of these different ways, it's unavoidable. And since it's unavoidable, we've been put into a position where we have to know how to use it in order for us to benefit our lives. And so it is a minefield. It seems like every time you turn around, there's a change. There's a change. And though the changes appear to be subtle, they're subtle in such a way that it disproportionately affects us.
Mm.
I give an example. In the mortgage industry, after the foreclosure crisis, there was some serious changes where the banks did get really punished, but those who were impacted by predatory lending practices did get punished because they changed the rules. They changed the rules from 4 years before foreclosure before you can get into home ownership to 7 years in foreclosure. Well, you have to wait, and that's the waiting period, what they call it. And then they changed another rule where now you can't just have a student loan that's in deferment. They started using 1% of the balance. And if you know our community, we tend to be prey for a lot of predatory practices. And one of those predatory practices, believe it or not, is the educational school system, whereby we have people with substantial amount of loans with very little to show for it. How do you have $60,000 in student loans and you don't have an AA degree yet? How is that legal? And so that $60,000 in student loans become $600 in a debt payment that goes into your ratio that disqualifies you or lowers the amount that you qualify for your family to get into home ownership, to purchase a house of your need. And so as a result, it's amazing how you can go to Facebook and you type in credit and how to fix your credit is everywhere. So we've been forming these communities in social media, Facebook, Instagram. And so the ways in which we've been going about navigating this minefield, man, is I agree with Karen, we're not there yet. We got a ways to go. However, progress is being made. So I'm grateful for that.
Thank you to our panelists. And I want to swing back to Trent just for a second here. So we've heard a perspective on how we're navigating, how it's impacted Black folks. But what was the original intent, Trent, of credit in the first place?
A great question. And the original intent for credit was to buy services and goods and pay them back. That was the original intent. But the way credit is being marketed today, it's being marketed as a status symbol, is a way of life. Look at how it's being promoted on TV, and look who are the promoters of credit within the African-American community. I will not say any names, but you're hearing cash back, I'm earning. So these are all, in my opinion, subliminal messaging to tell people, you get this little piece of plastic and you can do all these wonderful things. But one of the things that they do not state or say in any of these marketing campaigns is you have to pay it back. That's why, and I totally agree with Karen, and I also agree with Jeff. We got a long ways to go, but the education of credit and the understanding of credit, understanding how to keep your credit scores up, the utilization of credit from your balance to versus your credit lines is so important. And the number of credit cards or credit that we obtain, within our family structure. So, if we take it back to that origin, to that history of what it was created for, to buy services and goods today and pay them back tomorrow, to me, that's huge. That's a huge statement. But we also have to ask ourselves, how are we using credit today? It's not to buy services and goods and pay it back. We're using it for awards, cash back. And in some cases, we tend to get overextended because of the subliminal messaging of how credit is to be used in today's market.
So Karen, do you agree with that premise that Trent just laid out for us so elegantly about the original intent for credit? Is it a social status thing, Karen?
Absolutely, absolutely. When you go out, you're seeing it all the time. My credit score is this. I bought this new and latest and greatest vehicle with my credit. It is used, for me, it's still being abused. It's used as a social platform instead of it being as leverage to do something better, to use it for purchasing homes, leaving the legacy behind, buying properties, helping your children to understand what that means. We're not using it for the intended, purpose, as I feel. Other cultures do. They understand it really quickly. They get it. They teach their children and they move forward. I think we try so hard we're the same. So we're using our credit as, we can be that too. We got fancy things too. Look at what I got with my credit because I got a good job. But we're not thinking about, do you really need that Maserati? Is that really important? Or is that what we're doing? Or are you buying this duplex and are you living on one side and your family's living on the other side and you're building generational wealth and then you're going to taking the equity out of the house and buying another property? Sorry, I'm using my realtor hat. But are we doing that with it? No, we're not. Again, we're a long way to go. I digress. Trent just hit it on the head. He said it. Yeah, we're still abusing it. It's a social status from what I can see.
So you brought up an interesting point, and Jeffrey, I'll swing to you just now. So we're hearing so far about personal credit. Is there a nexus between personal credit and business credit, and how do you grow both of those if you can?
So there is a nexus between both of them, but it basically starts off with you having your personal credit being in order, because like when you start a business. So when you think about the credit application, right? Credit has been around for a very long time. I mean, the idea of borrowing now and paying later, that's nothing new. It's just that the minute you went to borrow some money from your family member and they didn't have enough to meet your need, then what you had to do was go and borrow it from someone else. Who in the village has the most money or the most cows or the most cattle or the most whatever that I need in order for me to make this transaction work? And so it's just that credit has always been, it started off relational first. And then once it moved beyond your family's ability to meet that need, it moved into a transactional setting. And so when you think about the credit application is all about, or credit is really about, like, if, let's say you're my cousin, if I want to borrow money from you, you know my mama, you know my dad, you know where I live at, you know where I worked at, you know where I growed up at, you know everything you need to know about me, even if I borrowed money from Uncle Tom and I didn't pay him back, because he gonna tell everybody in the family that Jeff didn't pay back my money. He said he's gonna pay me back when tax season came around, got his taxes, he looking good, but I'm still waiting, you know what I'm saying? And so when you think about the nexus between personal and business, it first starts off with, how have you been handling your personal relationships on that side of it? Because you are the image of your business until your business has its own reputation. Once your business has its own reputation, then your business began to generate credit. But a lot of the credit offers that you would get once you form the business is going to be based on relationship that you currently have with other financial institutions that have knowledge of how you've been handling your personal credit. So there is a nexus, but that nexus, it starts right here with your personal. Who are you personally? And then let me get to know your business. But if you're doing well with your personal credit, they will send you credit card offers for your business as long and specifically for your business, as long as your personal credit is in order. And the minute you send out the paperwork to file your filings down with the state, your business filings, if your personal credit is in order, you're going to start getting those offers.
Thank you, Jeffrey. And Trent, I come to you. You work a lot in community impact. We're talking about the nexus between personal and business credit. Sometimes I've seen it myself when people come in and they're trying to do whatever X is, and they don't realize that their credit is in bad shape. So how can you move from the personal credit to the business credit when you probably don't have the information of how the condition of your credit is in the first place?
That's a great question. And the best way I can answer it, because as Jeff said, the personal credit is that's the starting point. That's the character analysis, of who you are, right? That's your character. So when banks are looking at, individuals who are looking to start to get a business loan or some type of commercial loan within the banking system, they're going to look at a couple of things within those individuals. One, they're going to look at personal credit. Two, do you have a business plan? Three, your profit and loss statement, is your business profitable? Then with all of these things that they look at, it's going to create a beacon score. And once that beacon score has been created, that's going to be kind of the tell tape if you are to be approved or if you are going to be able to move forward with this business loan. So, and Jeff is right, once you have been approved for that business loan, just like with regular credit, you are going to start getting solicited by other opportunities to have more debt. And this is where the discipline has to kick in. This is where we really have to watch and really understand our checks and balances and ask ourselves that business question: how much credit do I really need? Right? Sometimes we start creating and getting and opening up more credit than what we really need, even if the business doesn't need it, because what that does is it creates more temptation. So the credit is the personal credit is the key. I'll just say it. That's the beacon. That's the starting point. And then it's going to overlay with other elements. Again, your profit and loss, how you run your business, is the business successful, et cetera. Again, which is going to create that beacon score. And then from that beacon score is going to determine if you get approved of a business loan. And that's where, I think even in the small business world, we really need to knuckle down and really have these educational conversations and work with some of the nonprofit organizations that are out there, to help and support small businesses so they can become bankable. You're right. I work in the community. I sit down and I talk to a lot of different individuals. And one of the main things that I always hear is we are unbankable. We never get approved of business loans. And in some way, somehow, we have to change that narrative. I don't have the answers on this call today, but that's something I think we really need to start focusing on, is changing that narrative so we can get these minority small businesses to be bankable. So getting that beacon score in line of what the banks are asking asking us to have to be approved.
Education is a part of the goal of the Association for Black Economic Power, and that's why we're here today. I heard the word out of your mouth, Trent, 4 different times: beacon, beacon, beacon score. I'm hearing light. Jeffrey, if you give me 10 seconds of what a beacon score is, and I've got another question for you right after that.
Okay, so there's 3 scores actually. You have FICO has Experian has the FICO score. Equifax has the Beacon score, and TransUnion has the empirical score. And all three of these scores is they use algorithms to calculate the score, and and each one of the scores can be different because they don't share information. So you can have a collection reporting to Experian that's not reporting to Equifax, or that's not reporting to TransUnion, which could cause your scores to be different. And so when you think about your credit score, you know, the credit score is in the primary purpose of the credit score is to give the lender a sense of the likelihood of you defaulting on this debt. That's the primary purpose of the credit score. It serves no other purpose other than to say, okay, if you loan money to this person, there's 100% chance that you're going to get your money back. If you loan money to this person, there's a 20% chance that you're not going to get your money back. And so from there, the scale gets broken down so that the higher your score, the more likely that the lender is going to get their money back. So you become a safe bet for the lender. And so when you think about the credit score, you want to think about risk. How great is the risk am I getting involved with doing business with you? And so that Beacon score, the Equifax is the Beacon score, the TransUnion is the empirical score, and the Experian has the FICO score. And your credit score is when they got all three together. So this is how your credit score works. Your credit score is empirical if you only looking at empirical. Your credit score is going to be the lower of two scores if you're looking at two scores. If you have all three scores together, your credit score is the middle score. It's not going to be the top one. It's not going to be the highest one. You're going to take all three scores. You're going to lay them out, the highest to the lowest, and whichever one comes in the middle, the second to the highest. That's why the industry calls it the middle score. Your credit score is your middle score, and not necessarily your Beacon score, your FICO, your Experian, but your middle score, because that's going to be the one that the lender is going to make that decision based off of.
All right. So one more time, FICO belongs to who?
The FICO belongs to Experian. It's the
Beacon?
Fair Isaac company. The Beacon belongs to Equifax, and
Imperial?
empirical is TransUnion.
All right. So in that regard, we got all these scores. I feel like we're going to school. We're getting graded on our credit worthiness. So Jeffrey, I want to stay with you just for a second. So are there pitfalls that people commonly go into, no matter who you talk to, you go, oh my gosh, here it is again. What are the common pitfalls? And give me one or two, and we'll go around to each of our panelists. How do we avoid those?
Okay, so the two. So I've been doing this for a long time in the community with Trent, and also as an underwriter in the mortgage industry, and just with my own personal finance. For total transparency, I've had the absolute worst of credit. So I want everybody in there on the call to know, hey, I've had 400 credit scores. I've had 800 credit scores, and they went back down to 400 credit scores, and now they're back in the high 7 credit scores. The two biggest pitfalls that most people make when it comes to credit is, one, Granddaddy told me everything I need to know about a credit card. He said, never borrow more money than you can pay back before the sun go down. Your credit card is not your emergency reserves. If you have credit and your credit is for emergency reserves, you already starting off losing, because that's a game of back and forth. No matter how many steps you take forward, you're going to always be taking a step back, because as soon as you get done paying it off, something else is going to happen. It always happens.
All right.
And the second biggest one, Freddie, is that we tend to co-sign for family members after we've gotten our credit right. And here's the problem. And I'm gonna say this, and I want to be total. If their credit wasn't good, so it's not about their credit, right? Life happens to everybody. I went from 800 credit scores to 400 credit scores because life happened. And so when life happens, you just gotta know that if it comes down to them having to feed their family and them paying this debt, that debt gonna lose every time. So if you're gonna co-sign for somebody, make sure that every month that the payment is due, you're paying that payment into a savings account. Because when life happens, it always does. They get into a car accident or whatever the case may be, don't have insurance because life happened, they dropped the insurance, and now the lender's coming back for that $14,000. You better have the money waiting for them, or else everything that you did for your credit to buy that house, to get ready, to get in position, it just jumped out the window.
Those are two
Those are my
pitfalls.
two.
Karen, do you have one?
Well, I would like to second that. Mr. Robinson hit it right on the head. I preach that to my children. I preach that to the people that I come in contact with. If they are not able to make their own treads with financing and crediting and purchasing what they need with their own credit, there's a reason for that. I'm a firm believer that you can provide someone a resource. You don't have to be their pitfall. That is not your responsibility, is to dig them out of their hole. For whatever reason, they have their own hole. It's for them to be able to dig themselves out of it. So again, hey, I know Mr. Robinson, I know Mr. Trent, and I know Ms. Karen, you know, they got some tools and resources for you, and they're really good, and they can talk to you about credit. That would be that resource. It's not for you to sign that dotted line. You are not the bank, and you are not the keeper for them. So we need to stop doing that because we feel obligated, right? That's kind of our culture. Once you made it and you got it and you got a couple extra coins in your pocket, you feel obligated to help our neighbors and our cousins and our family members. That's not our responsibility. Again, we can love up on people and give them resources. That is your responsibility, to share knowledge. It's not to share your name.
That's a big emotional shift. And Trent, do you have a couple of pitfalls that you see all the time? And do you have a way to get out of it? Did we happen to lose Trent?
It looked like he may have dropped by accident.
Okay, maybe it's that hole that somebody was talking about, perhaps.
I was
Trent
going to
fell
say
into
the same thing. He got mad. Oh.
that. So I got a question for you. I've heard of personal loans being used in lieu of credit card usage. Jeffrey, do you think that's a good idea?
So yes,
Why?
it's good. It's good for the person who's not good with credit cards. You don't. So the way the scoring metrics is made up of 30% of your score. So the highest score you can get is 850. 30% of your score is based on credit card usage. And so if you take 850, you do 30% or do 70% of that, that's the highest score that you can get without having a credit card. Now, it will not take you to 800. It's not going to get you there. But what it will do, it will position you to be able to be approvable for any financial product that you're out there looking for a car loan, house, credit card. It's going to be able to do that for you. So if you don't trust yourself with a credit card, then I don't trust you with a credit card. Leave it alone.
Karen, do you ascribe to that as well? Do you think a personal loan is better in lieu of using a credit card?
I do. I actually prefer to use the loan method. Then you stay out of that loophole, right? As Mr. Robinson was talking about, you use the credit card. If your eyes are bigger than your belly when you take it out already, you're going to find yourself in this using it and paying back. You're just always in this tailspin. So if you know that there is a need for whatever it is, you take out that personal loan, use it for what you need it to use for, pay it off, and be done with it. It's done. You're not worried about that revolving thing and getting you caught in that trap. So yes, I do think that's a better option for people who are just saying, I'm not fiscally responsible to have this revolving line.
Interesting. There's another idea or another question I have for you as we go, Karen. Are the zero interest checks that people use to pay off debt, what do you think about that? Is that a good idea, or should we run away from that like a house is on fire?
I think this is Mr. Trent's favorite topic right here. What does zero interest really mean? Taking that credit card balance, that balance transfer for 0% interest. Is that what you're referring to? Take
Yes.
Capital One card and move it to this other fabulous Visa product. Yeah, it might be 0% for now, but what are you paying for in long term? What is it really costing you? Reading that fine print, reading those brochures, reading that literature, and understanding why they're trying to encourage you to move that. And understanding that part of you moving that debt, that's part of your credit profile as well. They're watching to see how long it's going to take you to pay your debt off. So if you are not paying your debt, you're just bouncing it, that's following you. It's impacting your score. So understanding what that means, you moving it to another card doesn't mean that you paid anything down. You're just putting a Band-Aid on the bigger picture.
Interesting, Jeffrey, we're talking about using the so-called zero interest checks to pay off debt. What do you think about that? Good idea, bad idea? Why?
So it is a good, so everything could be a bad idea, right? And so I played that game before, Freddie. I played it and I played it quite well. If you're gonna play that game, you can, so it's a really good idea as long as you plan it with a budget, with a spending plan. Because if the plan is just to move the money over and so that I can lower my payments, then you're setting yourself up for failure. Just like Karen said, you're about to find yourself chasing those zero interest cards, and before long, you're gonna hit, there is an end to that game. And when you come to the end, if your ticket hasn't been punched and you're now ready to exit, you're gonna get caught with 29% interest that's gonna have been accumulated over the last 12 months. And so this is how people with great credit get trapped into predatory products, because that's a predatory product. If we took an interest-only credit card and called it an interest-only mortgage, everybody would be up in arms about it and be losing their minds right now. What do you mean an interest-only? So after I got done paying 3 years, the balance is still the same? Yes, the balance is still the same. And when you think about the collapse of the mortgage industry, it goes back to that, right? So now those products were not meant for people, for the average everyday consumer whose job is just getting in and out of products. Those products were built for people who have a plan, and their plan is to come out of it. So if you have an aggressive plan, well, okay, I need the lowest payment, I need zero interest because I'm going to be making $300-400 a month payments over the next 18 months. Because if you get an 18-month interest only credit card, you have to have an 18-month payment plan to pay this thing off within 18 months or before the 18-month period. Because if you have $1 left on that interest-only credit card, they're gonna hit you for all of the interest that accumulated during that 12-month time. So if you got a $3,000 debt and it's 18 months, that's $1,800 in interest that could have potentially accumulated over that time. So by the time you get to month number, the last month, if you got 1 penny left, hear me, you're gonna get hit with that $1,800 deal. It's crazy.
That's incredible. Thank you, Jeffrey. And Trent, I heard that this is one of your favorite topics about using zero interest checks to pay off your debt. I was asking our team if that was a good idea. And I heard that this is a sweet spot that you talk about all the time. What do you say?
I would, and I got lost there for a minute there. So I kind of came in at the tail end for what Jeff was saying, but absolutely. Yeah, it's the credit trap. It's borrowing, it's borrowing from one credit card to another credit card. And that's what we don't want, where you get enticed to open up that 0% credit card and transfer a balance to that 0% credit card, but that 0% credit card is only going to last for a 6-month or a 12-month period. So we have to be very careful. And one of the things that we talk about a lot in class is, don't con yourself. We will con ourselves in a heartbeat to charge something or pay for something, especially on that 0% interest. And we'll say to ourselves, oh, I charged this $500 suit or something. I'll just use me. I bought a $500 suit, and when the bill comes, I'm going to pay $250. I'm going to pay $250 on that $500 suit. But then that bill comes and it says $35. You can only pay me $35. And then that's what we do. And we get caught up in that trap. And then the next thing you know, that 6 months or 12 months, 0% interest now has jumped up to 17 or 18%. So we have to be very careful again, you know, with getting enticed, you know, and I really put it on these marketing campaigns, you know, because how they are marketing credit to our community, and how we fall for those traps, you know, with the 0% and the cash backs. These are all traps to get us to continue to open up more debt. And the more debt we have, again, takes us out of the game. I mean, if we look at the spending in the African-American community, I mean, this is no secret. You can Google this. We're trillions and trillions of dollars in spending. Well, how are we spending? What are we using to buy these material goods? Are we using cash or are we using credit? That's the question we have to start asking ourselves. Why are we $1 trillion why are we $1 trillion consumers? And how are we being $1 trillion consumers? Are we using cash or are we using credit? We fall, and we have to stop falling for that credit trap for these material goods that puts us or wants to put us in some type of a status, as I think Karen talked about it earlier, being in that status. Look at me, I'm doing it, I'm making it. But the reality is we're not making it, we're struggling. And this is why we have to be careful with these 0% interest. And then these new things that they have out there, you know, get $500. And you know, if you're in trouble, if you have issues or challenges, you know, call up one of these credit card companies or these predator creditors, and we'll give you $500. But you're not reading the fine print. You know the interest on that $500. You know, you'll say to yourself, well, I'm gonna pay $50 a month, but that $50, man, that's all going to interest, man. It's not, that balance is not declining. So we have to be very careful. And this is where the education really kicks in, Freddie. I mean, I honestly believe it has to start now in the high school or the junior high level and into the high school level, as well as into the college level. Understanding credit is an everyday learning experience. Jeffrey talked about it earlier today. He had 800 credits, he had 400 credit, now he's up to high 700s. And I can speak for myself, the same thing. I had good credit, I had bad credit, and I got good credit again. But but that's because we had to learn how to educate ourselves. We had to learn the discipline of credit. We had to learn, you don't use credit to buy Burger King. One of the things that I see a lot in teaching classes, I get a lot of folks use credit to buy coffee. I mean, the simplest thing you can have is coffee, and you can drink coffee for free at work or at any, go into other institutions or whatever. But we're paying $5 and $10 for a cup of coffee, and we're not paying cash for that coffee. We're using credit cards. So again, it's an everyday educational format for us to continue to learn how to better manage and maintain our credit, so we can keep it at that highest level.
It's really interesting. You mentioned the $500 limit or so forth. Just really quickly, I remember having a credit card, $500 balance, $10 minimum payment, and I stopped one day to calculate that.
Mm-hmm.
I was in my 20s, I believe it was, and I calculated that I would have been 68 years old by the time I paid off that $500. And that, I mean, when I did the calculation, I still would not have paid it off. I'd still be paying off that $500.
Mm-hmm.
That scared the love out of me at that point. But you make a great point, and you mentioned children. So Karen, I'm wondering, when should you allow your child to even start thinking about credit or getting their first credit card? Or should they ever get a credit card?
Never, ever, ever. No, I'm just kidding. Financial literacy is important, right? And I believe it's not a bad idea to start teaching them early, giving them some tools, let them be dangerous when they're with you. So I have an 11-year-old is my youngest, and I have a 19-year-old who is my oldest. And so my 19-year-old to this day does not have a credit card. He's not fiscally responsible. We talk about it. He gets to watch some things, but I know him. He's into basketball shoes and he wants the latest and greatest $300 pairs of jeans. He's not responsible to have a card. So we teach him a little bit differently. Now, my 11-year-old, and I'm embarrassed to say this, she's responsible. She'll take her money and hide it. Won't tell you where it is. She wants to buy something and I'm like, where's your money? And she comes out with this wad of cash, like, here's my cash. Can you buy it for me? And I'll give you the money. Can you use your card? So again, it's about the understanding what financial literacy means. And when they are at a mature level where they can understand it and the material things aren't, the tagline for them, I think that's the point where you can go ahead and introduce that to them. So yeah, my 11-year-old will probably have a credit card way before her brother. That's And then I also feel like you are able to have one when you can pay it back. Do you have the financial means to pay this back? The same way that Mr. Robinson was talking about student loans. I feel the same way. How are you giving people student loans and they don't even have the financial means to pay it back? Where is the income coming from? I'm not paying your credit card, son. If you have a job, then you can have a credit card. We can teach you how to use it responsibly and you can pay it back. It's not my responsibility to manage your shoe fund. That's not what that's for. So when you have the financial means to pay off what you utilize, then in the financial maturity, then you can have a car.
Thank you, Karen. I see that Jordans are not in my future. So Jeffrey, going to you, and Karen alluded to this, so is cash still king, or is there a time that you should allow your child to have their first credit card?
She's absolutely 35,000% right. So when it comes to, and I looked at that question and I was like, you know what? So two things. Well, one thing, the job, they have to have a source of income, either self-employed or employed, selling Kool-Aid, whatever the case may be. The second thing they need to have is a spending plan. Everybody that's bringing in income has to have a spending plan, because if you're not planning, then you're failing. If you're not planning, then you're planning to fail. And so you have to have a spending plan. Even, I don't care if they're 2 years old, if they're receiving money, you have to take, if I give you $2, I need you to take one of those dollars and roll it up and put it in that box or water jug or whatever the case may be, because I need to create in you first a habit of saving. And once we gotten that solidified, now we can talk about credit. But we can only talk about credit from the standpoint of you using it like cash, not like credit. If you use it like credit, then you're losing. If you use it like cash, then you're winning, because you're never going to spend more than you can pay back before the sun goes down.
I think you just said something key. Use your credit like cash.
Like cash.
Oh, if we take nothing away from this evening tonight, I think that is a big one, Jeffrey. Thank you for sharing that with us. So how do you leverage your credit then to reach your financial freedom? Do you use it? You shake it like, never mind, but do you leverage your credit? How do you leverage your credit to reach your financial freedom, Karen? How do you do that?
So go ahead, somebody else.
Oh.
Or was it
Karen.
directed to me? I guess, okay, yes.
So for me, using it as leverage is understanding, like we're just pulling in everything that we just said, knowing what your scores are, knowing what you have as far as cash, right? We can probably all on this call go out and buy Maseratis. That's not the point. Using it as leverage, when you are finding yourself signing an application, you're applying for something, know that you have the power. The power is in your hands. Knowing and understanding that, right? So if you are looking at a certain product and you're going to a certain financial institution and are like, well, I'm not sure, that's okay. Understanding that you can go somewhere else and your credit is your leverage, especially if you've taken care of it. You don't have to settle for that no. No is just an opportunity for another segue into somewhere else that maybe not the financial institution for you. And so understanding that, because I think so many times we have this preconceived notion that our credit, you know, you go into the bank, it's that mentality. I'm gonna sit here with my hands in front of my lap and I'm waiting for them to come back in here and tell me I'm approve or decline. Like, we're nervous. Even if you know what your credit score is, we still are nervous about it because we know that the power is in someone else's hands to deny us. If you truly know what your score is and you truly have taken care of your business, then you're not worried about that. You can come in, as they call it, you know, for us that's been around for a long time, you know, the A paper jerks. You don't have to be a jerk because you have an A+ credit score, but understand that the power is with you. You're not going to take anything. You're not going to settle for anything. Nope, I'm not doing, you know, the 6%. I know what my credit score is, and I know that I'm able to get that 5.9 because that's the best rate right now, or I'm taking that 3.9. You're not able to provide that to me, no problem. I'll go to US Bank, I'll go to Bremer, or I'll, you know, go to Arise, whatever it is. You have that flexibility to do that when you truly understand what your credit needs. They need you.
Yeah,
Period.
it sounds like you're preaching. I like that. So Trent, is that how you leverage your credit to reach your financial freedom? I mean, I've got this wonderful credit score, but does that lender sitting across from you look at the texture and the color of the skin? Does that impact it as well?
It can, but I think Karen must have been listening to one of my speeches. It's about that power, you know, knowing your power, knowing your value, knowing your worth. And that, yeah, again, as I stated earlier, credit is the heartbeat in everything we do. The greater the credit score, the more power you have. This has been one of the challenges for us because we don't understand that power and we don't understand the leverage that we have. Remember, the banks, or when you're looking to purchase a home, that loan officer works for the consumer. The real estate agent works for the consumer. So when you know your power, you know your credit, you know your assets, you know you've been on your job for 10, 15 years, you got great income, you got great assets, and you walk into that bank with your head held up high because you are in control. As Karen said, you don't want to if you want to give me a fast no, guess what? I'll go get a yes somewhere else because I know my power. So leveraging your credit is really about having that power and not having more credit than what we really need. I think that's another key thing. Why do we need 6 or 7 different credit cards? You know, again, limiting the amount of debt that we have because the limiting of the debt builds what? Our savings account, builds our checking account, because now when we get paid, see, our net isn't going to paying bills, right? Maybe our net is going to pay off a couple of bills, and we're leveraging that 20% utilization from your balance, but then I got money left over to put away now. See, we got to think about that. I got money left over. I paid my mortgage, I paid my car note, I paid my one little credit card. Hocus pocus. I got $500 extra that I can put in a savings account to continue to build generational wealth within my family structure. Now, this is what I can start teaching my kids. Hey, son, hey, daughter, you know, you don't need to charge all these different items. You can be successful and wear certain things. Like I said, I'm getting off track here a little bit, but again, it is very passionate, but it is about that power and knowing when when you have strong credit scores. And I'll end on this. I ask 3 questions when I do a consultation. Tell me about your income, your job history, job stability. Tell me about your assets, and I always end with tell me about your credit. And I always know when somebody has great credit, and I always know when someone has bad credit. There is no middle ground here. When you got great credit, you know your scores. There's too much information out here that can tell you what your scores are. So if I ask you, Freddie, what's your credit scores? And if you're confident and you know you got great credit, you're 700, 750, 790, 800. But when you got challenging credit, that answer is not as strong. It's not as powerful. Tell me your credit scores. Well, see, what had happened was, then here comes the excuses. So this is why we really have to understand that power of credit and how it dictates a lot of things that we want to accomplish, but we also, when we have great credit, now we can flip the script on some of these banks or some of these loan officers or some of these folks who think they control the narrative. Flip the script. You don't control the narrative on me. I control the narrative. I got 750.
Thank you.
I got 5-10,000 in my account. I got a great job. What's the rate? Like Karen said, don't quote me 8%. Quote me 5.99. Quote me the best you got on the table, and let's do some business.
Wow.
What Trent just said and what I teach the people that I come in contact with, it's a mindset, right? Knowing and understanding your worth. This tagline, I tell them to use it, to have it in your core when you go. I'm not begging, I'm buying. There's a difference.
Love that.
You have that mentality and understand that when you walk in, it comes out. I'm not begging you for anything. I don't need to beg you. Buying. So you're going to treat me with respect. You're going to treat me as a consumer, and you're going to take care of me, or I will take my dollars somewhere else.
All
I love
right.
that.
Can I jump in on that a little bit, Freddie?
Please, Jeffrey.
So, when you're working towards getting great credit, and I can tell you very honestly, I've been to the mountaintop when it comes to credit, and I know what it's like. I used to have a black card, and I thought only superstars and rock stars got black cards, and it cost like $750 a year just to have it in your wallet. But it came with a lot of privileges, and for the line of work that I was in at that time, I needed those privileges at the price that I was getting it for. For $750, it was cheaper than what I would have paid for those privileges out of pocket. Having great credit is not about just having a number. This ain't about no number. I could care less about a number. What I care about is that I get the best at the best price for me and my family. When you have bad credit, you're paying the most, oftentimes for the worst. Hear me on that. And so now I was just in Wisconsin. This is what it's about. I was just in Wisconsin. I stayed a night in Wisconsin, Madison, Wisconsin. We go out to the hotel, me and my wife, just to chill out before we drove to Chicago this afternoon. You guess how much my hotel rate was? $50.
I need to travel with you.
Yeah, right. So, and this is how you leverage it. This is how you leverage your credit, because now I mentioned, using your credit like cash. And I sincerely mean that, because we are consumers. You probably spend about $3,000 a month on average just on eating out, grocery store, gas in your car insurance, phone bill, cable bill, light bill, gas bill, all these different bills. When you got great credit, they give you free stuff for having their credit. And so what I get free, I get points. I get hotel points. I get airline miles for free. And I don't use it to go buy something that I can't afford. I use it when I go to the grocery store. I download the app to my phone. When I use it, I go straight to the app and I pay for it because I'm using it like cash. But in doing so, when it's time for me to go out of town or go on vacation or something, I'm not paying full price for nothing. I'm committed to not ever paying full price for anything. If I can't get it at a discount, then we can't do business, period. I don't care if it's not on sale. I need 10% off on that right now. Call your manager. I respect that because you're not in position to make that decision. So call the person over who is in position to make that decision. Let me talk to them. And don't worry, I'm coming back to you because this is your commission. But I just need them to come over here to give me the 10% off and free delivery, because that's what they do for other folk. I seen them do it. So you did it for them. You're going to have to always do it for me now. You know what I'm saying? So when it comes to your credit and leveraging it to build your wealth, that's what this is about. Because instead of paying $140 a night at a hotel, I only spent $50. That's $100 that go into my savings. That's $100 that can go towards taking care of some other need that I may have. That's what this is about. It's about making your life cheaper so you can afford the best version of you possible. That's what this is. It ain't about nothing else, man. It's about this. It's about really getting out of life what you want for it. Not what somebody else's life look like. That has nothing to do with me and you. Figure out how much your life costs and figure out how much where your credit is, and let's get your credit up so that we can get to that life, man. Dan Johnson, Lateef Abdullah, Kenny Smith, Leilani Melendez, Mikey Green. I'm telling you, it's for you. And if you don't have to be rich, but if you got good credit and you make that your objective, you can live a really good life.
We've
Simple.
learned a lot today. We've only got 5 minutes left, and that's a key strategy. I just want to go quickly with our panelists for one last question. Today, once we leave this session this evening, what's one thing we should do today to make sure that our credit is in good shape? Karen, let's go to you first.
One thing you can do today is start making better choices. I think we ended this way the last time as well. The small things matter. So today, whatever it is, I have a Starbucks addiction. So thanks a lot, gentlemen. But today I'm going to make a conscious decision to maybe give that up. Again, I won't tell you how much I spent a week, but making a better decision. What can I do with the money? How can I reallocate that? Is it a need or a want? Re-looking at my finances again, it's always a good thing. Take a look at your car or your insurance as a whole. We know that we spend a lot of money on that. Most people look at it around June. It's a really good time to look at your insurance right now. Insurance agents are bored. So re-look at that and try to see if you can get some money, some savings there as well.
Trent, what can we do today once we leave this session?
Do an audit on yourself. Do an audit on yourself, highlight some of the things that you're using your credit cards on, some of the, miscellaneous type of things that you're using credit cards on, and then highlight those things that you're using your credit cards on. And then ask yourself, do I really need to use my credit card for these items? Because when I am using my credit card for these miscellaneous items or these items that I probably could use cash for, when I make my payment, am I covering these miscellaneous items? Am I paying the minimum payment, or am I making 70 to 80% of the payment on that bill to keep my utilization at 20% based on my credit line? So do an audit on yourself, and then be honest with yourself, because this is a big game. This is not a game. This is life. As Jeff said, this is life. So how do you want your life to be? How comfortable do you want to have your life? And doing an audit and being honest with yourself, I think will be a huge impact at the end of the day for yourselves, as well as myself, because I do the same thing. I have a bad habit of going to the grocery store. I don't know why I'm always at the grocery store, but it's just something I do. So again, I know, and you got to understand your habits too. And what are you going to do about those habits?
Jeffrey, you get the last word. What's one thing we can do today once we leave this session tonight?
Get some help. Seriously. Contact an organization like Build Wealth Minnesota, who provides financial education and financial coaching, and get some help. Help them. Freddie called it a minefield. It is a minefield. It is a minefield. Work with a professional who know what they're doing, who don't cost and don't charge you a whole lot to do it, so that you can get some help and can teach you and educate you about the process, so you can pass that knowledge down to your family.
All right, Jeffrey. So we're not begging, we're buying. Have a spending plan. Use credit like cash. Oh, I don't think you heard me. Use credit like cash. Make better decisions, do an audit, get some help. And to help us right now is Deborah Hurston, the esteemed leader of the Black Wealth Economic Power, making people feel good about themselves. You have the last word, Deborah.
Well, thank you very much. And before I give you the last word, I do want to give a promo for ABAP's Northside Financial Education Center that Karen is going to be leading up. That will also be addressing financial literacy. And in the room with us, we had someone who snuck in the room, and I didn't know he was going to be here. And I am going to put him up front and put the spotlight on him for a second. And that's Dan Johnson, who is the CEO of Arise Credit Union. And Dan has a wealth of information about credit management, saving, and positioning yourself in the right position. And if I had known you were going to be here, Dan, I would have I would have forced you to unmic and get in this conversation. Can you unmic and say hello?
I would love to. I was just sat here and really enjoyed listening to four learned people about credit. I couldn't agree more. If I were to add anything to it, and it was already mentioned, but one way that I've always told people is to try your best to have more credit available than balance due. And that's just something you can look at right away, because that is performance. And a lot of times that's what they really look at performance. The wrong idea is to try to game it. Okay, you get a $500 credit limit or $1,000 credit limit. You charge it to $1,000. Next month you pay off $1,000. That's not going to help you. They want to see performance. They want to see you manage your credit. If you have a $500 line and you stay at that $200 point and you work inside those parameters, your credit score will go up exponentially because you're managing credit. They can't be gamed. They've been watching for over 200 years. So they know the gaming part of it. Get the credit, pay a little interest, because some of this is you got to pay to play. You do. And you do have to pay some interest. You do have to run a balance, because if you get a credit card with $300 on it and you never use it for 16 months, they're going to send you a letter and say, this isn't mutually beneficial and we're cutting the card off. So again, you guys did a wonderful job. I was so glad to just be able to absorb and soak in and be reaffirmed with a lot of the things that I think, to know that other brains and minds out there are in like thinking. So it was my pleasure to just sit and listen.
Thank you, Dan. And again, I want to thank the panel. You guys did a fabulous job. And as always, Freddie, we could not do this without you. And I could not do this without my staff, with Dana Posley and Anita Burks, who have actually worked to pull this entire event together. And I do hope people will join us for our next conversation on the Black tax. And when we say Black tax, we're not referring to the IRS Black tax. We're literally referring to the tax that you pay just because you're Black. If you have challenges with the police, that's a Black tax. If you are selling your home and you are getting less for it than someone else, that's a Black tax. So we're going to be addressing all of those issues that you deal with just because you're Black, and helping you navigate those landmines. And this program, along with the others, will be posted on our website. So please don't hesitate to go there if you'd like to view it again and share it with others. And also, I want to give the last plug for Arise Community Credit Union. We're always looking for more surveys for the pledge form. This pledge helps the regulators see the interest in the credit union coming into the neighborhood. They do have all the documentation, and we're just working our way through a few questions that they have, but we are closer than ever. It is alive, it is coming, and we continue to need your support.
All right. Dan, I apologize. I didn't see that you've come into the room. I'm so focused on something else. And please accept my apologies.
Not at all, Mr. Bell. It's my pleasure to be here.
All right. Well, with that, thank you for your attention. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being with us. And whatever you do, make sure that you take care of yourself and do something for you tomorrow. Good night, everybody.